with cloud computing, it's scalable. So if you wanted to scale up or scale in or whatnot with on-prem, it's a bit more difficult because you have to bring your servers in and you have to, have a technician, you could do whatever he has to do, and so you have to pay that technician and whatnot. With cloud computing, you can easily scale in, scale out, scale up, scale down your servers and whatnot, you know what I mean? So it's very easy. You can do it with infrastructure as code. Infrastructure as code is just essentially being able to, communicate with a vendor like AWS or something using code. Like tools like Terraform can do this for you. Just a couple of clicks and whatnot. Especially if you know what you're doing properly, you can easily scale in, scale out without having to bring a technician in or having to pay any extra cost and whatnot.
Hey, what up, fam? So I love you, host Africans of Tech, where we're building bridges and shaping futures of tech. On our pod today, we got my guy, Josh Rotimi. What up, bro?
How you doing?
Yeah, Josh gonna be talking to us today about the differences between on-prem and cloud computing. If you've not yet checked it out, go check out his episode where we did the interview on Josh, like his background into cloud computing and cloud security specifically, and what that entails, and kind of like what that means as a whole for the continent and where we can kind of move with not just cloud computing in general, but just AI as well. So definitely a lot of gems and nuggets dropped on us. Go check that out. But enough of me talking, man. Josh, off to you, bro.
Sounds good. So yeah, today we're gonna be talking about the differences between on-premises and cloud computing. So I would love to just kind of break it down in two segments: the advantages and disadvantages, and then we'll talk about a little bit of history between the both of them. On-premises, essentially, it's what it is on premises. So you have your infrastructure in-house, right? This is how companies or enterprise or whatever, this is how they, typically manage things before the advent or the initiative to create something like cloud computing, which it only became a thing maybe in the past decade or some change. Yeah. And so on premises involves you having your infrastructure on ground, and some advantages to that would be having full control of what you have in house, right? You have customizable security, so you can actually have your firewalls in house. You can pretty much know that your data is secure. It's in-house, so nobody can just come in there and do whatever they want to do, right? And data sovereignty, so your data is in-house, and it kind of ties to customizable security. Data sovereignty is essentially you knowing that your data is yours, right? It's 100% yours. It's not outsourced somewhere else. It's not living in another place. It's in your building. Your physical building.
If I can add to that, like one thing I think people sometimes mistake is like we think of like on-prem or like data centers are like these large like facilities, like like Google. You think about Facebook, and I was like a data center for like a small company could be literally a room.
A room,
yeah, and that they have like their servers in. So when you hear this, like at the end of the day, when we talk about like on-prem, don't think about like these large grand buildings that you see that have like thousands of racks and all this other jazz. Just think about a room where you hosting whatever it is that you're doing, and you control those computers.
Exactly.
That's all it is, right?
Exactly. And I want to add to that too. With having on-prem, most people don't get to realize that those buildings, maybe when you were in school or like maybe in a hospital, where you open this room and it's like this black racks of like blinking machines and whatnot. Yeah. That's essentially the in-house data center.
That's it.
Right.
Yep.
So so that's those are just one of the few advantages, or some of the few advantages of having on-premises infrastructure. Now the disadvantages to it would be upfront investment. It's very expensive to set up an in-house infrastructure like that. It's very difficult to maintain as well. So you have to outsource that maintenance work, and it's not necessarily cheap, right? So those are just some of the few disadvantages to it, but these are one of the main ones because companies want to. That's the point, right? You want to cut costs, and these these right here, drive up costs, right? Now, enter cloud computing. With cloud computing, it's scalable. So if you wanted to scale up or scale in or whatnot with on-prem, it's a bit more difficult because you have to bring your servers in and you have to, have a technician, you could do whatever he has to do, and it's like you have to pay that technician and whatnot. With cloud computing, you can easily scale in, scale out, scale up, scale down your servers and whatnot. You know what I mean? So it's very easy. You can do it with infrastructure as code. Infrastructure as code is just essentially being able to, communicate with a vendor like AWS or something using code. Like tools like Terraform can do this for you. Just a couple of clicks and whatnot. It's, especially if you know what you're doing properly, you can easily scale in, scale out without having to bring a technician in or having to pay any extra cost and whatnot. Flexible resource provisioning, it kind of ties in with scalability as well. You can provision resources anytime you want. Like at 2 a.m. in the morning, you can spin up a RDS instance or something like that. Whereby with on-prem, you'd have to schedule some time for a technician to come in. You'd have to a bunch of checks and balances before you're able to get, I don't know, maybe 3 RDS instances or whatever it may be. But yeah, another one would be global availability. So this one is really important because, say for example, you're a company that you share your products to, or your products need to be available in countries that are not necessarily close to the country that you're in currently, right? So say for example, you want people in, I don't know, Southeast Asia to be able to, to reach your app over the internet or something like that. Well, you need to have a situation whereby you have data centers that are close to, they're called edge locations, right? So data centers that are close to where your customers or clients are or whatnot. And this is only possible because people like Jeff Bezos with AWS, he was able to build big data centers all around the U.S. and scattered all over the world. So now globalization in that aspect is really possible and it's plausible. And so yeah, that's one big thing with cloud computing. So now an average company or a startup or whatever don't necessarily have to spend so much money to make sure that their product or whatever is could be shipped out somewhere else. And yeah, some disadvantages to cloud computing would be data privacy concerns. Now with on-premises, 100% that your data is in-house and you are hosting it and nobody has access to, or the people that have access to it. With cloud computing, it's like a 99.8% or 99.99% chance that, somebody has access to it. You know what I mean? So it's like some people are not comfortable with that percentage. Some people want 100%. Then there's vendor lock-in. Say for example, you're with AWS and you sign some contracts and whatnot, and your infrastructure is so heavily embedded in AWS. It's and you decide one day, hey, I don't really like AWS anymore for whatever reason. It's kind of difficult to kind of transition from one cloud computing vendor to another. So that's another thing with vendor lock-in, whereby with on-premises, say for example, you just don't like the servers that are on there or something like that. You can just order another another piece of hardware or whatever, and get it situated and whatnot. And then unpredictable cost overruns. Like with this one, with on-premises, you can't necessarily just spin up a server and there are a whole bunch of checks and balances before you're able to do that. With cloud computing, any engineer can just wake up one day and be like, oh, I just want to spin up some things and do this and do that, but don't turn it off or don't delete resources or whatnot, and it just accumulates cost and whatnot. So you would think this is going to be cheaper, but if you make mistakes here, it's going to be way more expensive than having on-premises. So those are just some disadvantages to it, and yeah, that's pretty much. And then some companies try to opt for a hybrid approach, whereby they have some on-premises and they have a cloud computing vendor or whatnot, and they just make sure it's a two-way connection between the two. So maybe they want all their RDS instances in-house, but they just want all their I don't know, maybe their web servers or something on the cloud, then you can definitely do that and create a connection where they can communicate with each other. Yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Yeah, no, this is good stuff. And just to recap what Josh was saying, because I know for those who aren't as technically savvy, so if you have your data center or if you have your data on-prem, and this could be you in your house, you built a website or whatever it is, you're selling something and that's hosted on your laptop or whatever server it is in your house, you have something that's on-prem. And then from there, what you can do is you can either utilize the services on-prem and you're basically maintaining everything. So if your server goes down, whether you're using a laptop, which is be really weird, but if you're using a laptop or using like a grade A server to actually like host whatever it is you're doing, you have to maintain that, or you have to hire somebody to maintain that. And it can be expensive depending on like who it is and long run and all that other stuff. And then from a scaling standpoint, just like he's saying, like you can't really scale on-prem like that fast. Like it's gonna take some time for you to be able to serve, let's say hundreds of customers, not even thousands, just hundreds of customers. Cloud allows you to do that, right? And then from a negative standpoint, just like Josh is saying, upfront investment is you have to pay, thousands of dollars. Like I looked at buying a server in house for not just African Tech, just in general for other stuff we're doing. That it costs a lot of money up front, and then you got to think about cooling. You got to think about maintenance of it. Like you got to think of like how you're gonna get these updates, because you got to update your servers, not just sitting there for like 10 years. Security, you also got to secure it. A lot of that is covered, within AWS. Like who's gonna be accessing like your server? For the most part, with AWS and all these other like big cloud providers, they have all that stuff already taken care of for you, and they hire literally cloud engineers to protect like internal stuff, while you may hire your cloud engineers, like what Josh does, to protect application specific stuff. And then now you have two fronts, so now you don't have to worry about that. On the cloud side, he mentioned scalability already, which we already talked about. Flexible resource provisioning. So now if you need to serve 10,000 customers, you guys think about like Black Friday. Like when Black Friday happens, a bunch of people get online, they buy a bunch of crap, and then after that they disappear. You need to spin up maybe 50, 70 different servers at that time to be able to handle the load, and after that just go offline. But you don't want to be paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for, there's no such thing as a Black Saturday, right? There's no Black Sunday. It's only Black Friday. You only need it on that Friday. After that, it's like, all right, you may see the rush up to Cyber Monday, whatever it is, but after that, it's like, all right, we need to like scale down. And just as Josh mentioned, you need to scale out, scale in, scale down, whichever term you want to use for that. At the end of the day, if you don't need resources, you get rid of it. Global availability. Amazon, we're talking about AWS in this case, but any other cloud provider, for the most part, the big ones, they have data centers all over the world. And in order to be able to serve customers in China, in parts of Africa, in US, South America, you have these data centers already pre-built for you. So now you can build servers any and everywhere. You can just literally click of a button. I want to spin up an instance in South Africa. I want to spin up an instance in Brazil. I want to be able to serve my customers that way. And like he mentioned with Terraform and all these other infrastructure as code type of resources, you can build these things very quickly. Not only that, you can build it on top of that with your application as well, using other sort of like either in-house automation or third-party tools like Ansible, Chef Puppet, whatever it is to do those things. And then from a data privacy standpoint, the negatives, right? So the negatives is that, you don't necessarily know who's actually tapping into your server. If AWS gets compromised, you may not find out about it until like, 10, 15 days later when your data is already gone. Whereas, on-prem, you know exactly what's happening. Well, for the most part, if you have right security controls. And then vendor lock-in. You're not moving from a 10,000 foot building to another 10,000 foot building in like a day. It's going to take a while. So that vendor lock-in, you get stuck with all the resources, all the tool sets. Think about if you're working with, you buy stuff from Walmart. That's all you buy. So now switching over to buying stuff from Target and everything from Target takes a while, because then you got to do price match. You got to figure out like what sort of products you're going to get from Walmart. that you were getting from Walmart that's different from a Target perspective. So then you got to figure out those two things, and it takes time to kind of do that whole move. And then that's where the unpredictable cost also comes in. So now you locked in with the vendor, and just like Josh said, that hey, some random engineer, Joe Schmo, this idiotic SAR guy that we just hired recently. He's just building all these daggone servers, like I3 larges for whatever reason. It's just like I'm building. I just want to see what this is like. And then your company's bills is running up. You may fire SAR after 10 days, but SAR's already done the damage. He's had these servers up for like days now, and then these things are just burning through the loophole. He installed some stupid LAMP stack application on there that's just like eating away all your compute. And next thing you know, billing, comes at you saying, why did you build this? Why didn't you use some smaller server that could do the same amount of work, and not the same amount of work, but can do the work for you, but for less? So yes, for those of you who are cloud savvy and all that, yes, you can put certain controls on who can build what, who can do all these other things. But at the end of the day, that's still a risk where you don't have to worry about that for the most part on-prem. Like I'm not going to go buy my own server and rack it on-prem and then say, now add this to the data center. Whereas on cloud, I could easily do that. So this is great stuff right here for those of you who are ever considering the idea of going to cloud computing. This you can see here clearly like the possibilities, and then you can also see like the negatives as well. So if you have any other questions around this, I suggest you hit up Josh, because this is only like the beginning point of the yeah. There's so many other details that goes into like transitioning from on-prem to cloud, or even considering cloud. So Josh, if they wanted to get in touch with you, man, what's
yes, you can definitely hit me up on LinkedIn. Joshua Rotimi-Samuel is my LinkedIn handle, and Instagram as well would be ROTIMII _. And you just shoot me a DM or whatnot, and I teach cloud computing courses and cloud security courses as well. So if you're ever interested, you can hit me up.
Awesome, bro. Like I mentioned already, Josh had a fantastic interview. So go check out that interview if you've not looked at it yet. And if you have any questions around any of the stuff we talked about, I have Josh's handle on wherever you're watching this. So whether YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, wherever you're watching this, we'll have Josh's handle on there so you can reach out to him. And if you have any additional questions around anything that was discussed tonight, feel free to hit us up at africansintechnology@gmail.com. Again, it's africansintechnology@gmail.com. My name is Saul Levy. This is Africans in Tech. We're building bridges and shaping futures in tech. All right, fam.